Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner, Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, over at The Athletic, Jason Stark, who knows the history of the game about as well as anyone. We've been around in this business. Obviously loves baseball and loves to dive into these things. He started the all quarter century team for MLB. I thought that it was a fun project to read about, and we decided to do a Cubs all quarter century team. I don't think any Cubs made that all quarter century, the MLB team, and doing this list. Something that stood out to me in the process was this has been arguably the best quarter century of Cubs baseball, ever. Maybe the first quarter century of the 1900s was up there. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like the equivalent of a podcast, in 1908. What people were arguing about in their local taverns and whatnot.
The 75 to 2000 would have been a slog to do that. It would have been, like 4 or 5 players that it's like, yeah, these guys are great. And then the rest is like, this is really rough to go through. 50 to 75 would have been very top heavy with a bunch of Hall of Famers. There are no obvious, at least nothing obvious there on the list I created. There's no Hall of Famers. We can debate whether you want to change the way you look at starting pitchers. That's a conversation for another time. But what's kind of great about this list is there's a ton of playoff teams, and of course the 2016 team. I gave the 2016 team some edge. If there was ever a toss up, or if I wanted to squeeze a player in, I would do that. I thought it was important to for this exercise that they get an edge. They did what once seemed impossible, won a World Series. It was fun to do. It's not like it was an impossible task. It felt kind of easy at times, to be honest. First base I thought was easy. Look, Dirk Lee gets a ton of love. That 2005 season, that was awesome. He was a stud. Anthony Rizzo's the pick. I'm not going to overthink it. I don't know if you have want to debate that, but
I mean, I think I once described him as Mr. Cub 2.0. So I'm not going. You can't, as much like Derek Lee, total class act, a great player, well deserved. Was it Cubs Hall of Fame now? But to your point, when you're bracketing out these quarter centuries on Baseball References, their all-time top 24 players, a lot of black and white photos in these headshots. Very few players that we've ever covered as players, and Anthony Rizzo sneaks in there at the end. I'd imagine that might have been the easiest pick on this whole exercise. Kind of a no doubt one. For Riz.
Yeah, no, he was obviously a huge, emotional piece of the puzzle. Fans love him. There's some fun moments with him. I still think the most fun moment I remember was first full capacity. It wasn't a great season. 2021 turned out to be the dismantling of this 2016 roster, but that first full capacity game where he hit that home run to go ahead of the Cardinals, that was fun. That was fun. It was like the life came back to Wrigley finally. That was really fun. Second base, this was probably the hardest one for me. But I managed to get the guys I picked. I didn't choose onto this list, but Nico Horner is my pick, and just looking at the list, I've started to wonder if I don't appreciate the guy enough. He's an elite defender, and I was thinking about it while writing this. It's like almost once, if not once a series, it's once a week that we're seeing him save his pitcher with a great play that saves him pitches, saves him runs, saves a game, whatever it is. His glove is arguably underrated. We've seen some really good defenders, sound to great defenders at second base over the past decade and a half, I'd say. Um, whether it's Darwin Barney, Javier Baez, Ben Zobrist, they're all very good second basemen to great. Uh, Nico may be the best one defensively. He makes these plays that I just didn't. I think watching him every day and just kind of understanding like how good he's gotten. He's not flashy like Javi, but he makes so many plays. He's so good defense, and he's just he's not going to hit for power, so he's not going to get a lot of love on offense. But he's consistent. He puts the ball in play, doesn't strike out. He does hit the ball hard. He just doesn't drive it a ton. He's an average, slightly above average offensive player. Really good ball player.
I would have gone with Ben Zobrist on this one. Just World Series MVP. I realized his defense, and by the time he got to the Cubs, he wasn't quite, Nico's level of defense. But I think what we're seeing with Nico, I think he'll be fully appreciated as this season plays out. Like I would be kind of thinking of him more towards maybe he won't last another, how many more years into the next quarter century. But to me, Nico is that perfect complementary player on a great team. Maybe it's happening now. I still would have found Zoe. I would have put Zoe there to put other players on, but we'll get to that later because you have a utility spot as well.
Yeah. So shortstop, I went that was Javi.
Yeah.
I didn't think about this much. It just like you said about Nico, maybe Dansby Swanson, if we're doing this exercise 25 years from now, makes the list. Dansby Swanson is an elite defender. Javi was an elite defender too, and Javi is starting to look like Javi again in Detroit. The highs with Javi were so fun. I think we just passed up that anniversary of the crazy play in Pittsburgh. That's remarkable. There was a point in time in like 18, I want to say. It was kind of like how PCA is now, where it's like you can never write too much about Javi. Just keep writing the Javi stories because that's what the fans want to read. And it was kind of almost hard to describe. Like even his slides were fun to write about and describe. Like that it was a fun era, and it was exciting to watch Javi do his thing. El Mago, that basically 16 to 19 era of Javi was about as fun as it gets, and he answered a lot of questions because I think there were people that thought he was too up and down to handle a shortstop. He was going to make too many errors, but what an arm! Just really, really plus defender, and just when he was locked in on offense, not many players had that type of power.
Yeah, and it's crazy. You could have put him at second base. He was a very good third baseman as well. Obviously, that falls under the utility umbrella. Just this idea of kind of in 2015 when they caught fire of, well, let's just play Javi wherever we think the ball is going to be hit the most. It's cool to see him rejuvenated in Detroit. The Cubs will be going there soon. Just one of those players, not a Hall of Famer, but just definitely one of the most unique, dynamic players we'll ever cover, and certainly is going to be on these type of lists for a long time.
All right, Patrick, let's take a quick break and then get to the rest of this list.
If you're a card collector or you'd like to get into card collecting, may I suggest Arena Club and slab packs, which means that you can rip the packs digitally and, of course, get the card that you want. It's also the most trusted name in the game, and I would rather rip packs these days on my phone than sit next to you and have you grabbing one of my physical packs if I was grabbing one.
Yeah, you don't need me grabbing your packs, because last time you grabbed one, it ended up like this card. So let's not have that, and that's why Arena Club is great. They send them to you in these fancy protectors like this Scout Brown card that we have here, and they'll come safe. They're already graded. Or you could do like I do and just leave my cards in the showroom and never actually see them physically.
Yeah.
But they're safe, protected, and if I want to sell them, I can.
Buy, sell, trade. They offer full transparency, showing every card in the slab pack with the likelihood of pulling each one, so you know exactly what's available before you buy. Get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/foul and use code foul.
All right, Patrick, another easy one for me. Third base. Rookie of the Year, MVP, World Series winner, Chris Bryant. I wrote about how, look, this guy, Bryant isn't having the career we expected, but his peak was as impressive. He lived up to the hype almost immediately. We haven't seen peaks like that very often. It was like this 4 or 5 years of just great performance. Injuries, inconsistency, whatever it was, kind of caught up to him, and he fell off there. But it was fun. The 15, 16, 17 especially. He edges out Aramis, who deserves a lot of love. Aramis Ramirez, one of the more underrated players that we covered. We covered, I think, the end of his Cubs career. And he was definitely took probably too much heat when he was a Cub, but he was, he was a really good ball player and had a knack for. He didn't was something I don't think I realized was he barely struck out. That guy just put the ball in play, hit 300, got on base, hit for power. Really good ball player. But KB's the pick.
I would have gone with Aramis in that, because of that utility spot. How I would have done it is I would have put Zobrist at second and just made KB the utility guy, just because it seemed like that was kind of his best or most valuable position, when Joe Madden could just move him around everywhere. I also just kind of felt like if D. Lee is left off, I think you got to put a spot for Aramis, just because if you look at the entire scope of this quarter century, like 2003, the expectations, the drama, if Aramis doesn't come here, I don't know if it happens the same way. And that raises all these expectations. And Wrigley kind of finds, obviously, there's another person on this team who really made Wrigley the main attraction here. But like 07, 08, when Wrigleyville was just absolutely rocking, it was bonkers. I think Aramis played a huge role in that, and he did take heat. His body language. He wasn't the most demonstrative player. He was quiet. He's intelligent. He sort of knew what he needed to do. Like, I personally kind of learned a lot from that just by interacting with him over the years, kind of observing what he did. Was like everyone at the time it was a 25-man roster. Everyone can't be the same. Like everyone, you can't go 100% effort on every single play during a 162 game season, and production is what matters. And I think his production, he's right there. And even seeing how KB's fallen off a cliff in Colorado kind of makes me rethink, okay, how did Aramis do this for so long? But yeah, I mean Chris Bryant, the MVP of the Chicago Cubs team, he was the primary third baseman. I get it.
I no, but I respect the Aramis love. He deserves that love. Catcher, this one was easy for me. I know Wilson took a lot of heat as he left town for his ability to catch, and we're seeing he's not a catcher anymore. Look, he wasn't a great framer. He wasn't a perfect game caller. he could hit the crap out of the ball. He still can. He was on another level offensively at times. He'd go on these heaters that would just carry the team. And I give him credit for the 2016 season, coming in the middle of a season where all this pressure is on and you have to catch these veteran pitchers and learn how to do it. And he got through it. Yes, he took heat again for that over the long haul during his time with the Cubs, but that 2016 season was impressive. He came up there, handled the pressure, delivered in big moments with his offense, and handled a pitching staff that had a lot of pressure on it to win every game. Pretty much, it felt like. He's the pick over Soto, over Michael Barrett. Those guys aren't. I didn't consider them, but I did mention them because Soto was really good defensively, and I'd almost forgotten about it. And Michael Barrett, I looked at his offensive numbers. I was like, man, we hated on this guy a lot back in the day. I think that's just because I was a kid in my 20s, and I just wanted to complain that this guy wasn't hitting every day. But he was a good offensive catcher. I don't know how good I didn't analyze defense back then as much. I don't know. I didn't know much about it back then, so I don't know if he was very good defensively. And he's a part of one of the best Cubs White Sox fans, that any of us have seen.
I mean, yeah, he lives on. As long as the Cubs play the White Sox, like, he will live on in that sense. Soto, great start. He put together a solid overall career. Obviously, just didn't match those expectations. And final note on Wilson Contreras, I believe he spent, of this quarter century, he spent maybe 14 years in the Cubs organization when you including his time in the minors. Just kind of an amazing story, even if the ending was a little bit messy. I mean, this is a guy, whenever he shows up to Wrigley Field for the rest of his life, will be showered with cheers for his contributions to ending the drought.
All right, I had a utility spot, and that's where I put Zobrist. Biggest hit in Cubs history. Great guy, great leader in that clubhouse. Quiet, but when he spoke, it was a big deal. And for our purposes, I really enjoyed talking to him. He taught me a lot about hitting, and just the art of it. And one other point I made when mentioning Zobrist was his absence was kind of the downfall of that offensive core, because the league was changing. The high fastballs and breaking balls away were the kryptonite of a lot of that core, and they couldn't replace Zobrist. They never replaced Zobrist. If they had some diversity in that lineup, who knows if things would have ended better. But it was a big issue with that offense, and Zobrist, that was never an issue for him. And it kind of taught me and probably plenty of others breaking down that what is wrong with this team. Oh, they're missing this type of player, this Ben Zobrist type of player. And we see more of those now. Nico Horner's kind of that type, maybe not as good of a hitter as Zobrist was. Certainly doesn't have the power that he had at his peak, but just that type of coverage of the zone, and the game's kind of shifted back in that direction where not always the launch angle is the focus, and Ben Zobrist types have value again. Not that they lost value, but they have more of a space here, and you're looking for that type of player.
Good. Good call on tying Nico and Zobrist together, because I think two of the best people we've encountered in terms of just explaining the game, of recognizing the importance of feel, of understanding all the data that goes into the entire strategy to put the bigger picture of an organization and the city in perspective. Like, those two guys, it's hard to find just better explainers. It's hard to find two more thoughtful players, just an all-century interview team in our book.
This one may be recency bias for me.
100%.
Left field. Left field. I went with Ian Happ. His consistency over the past, whatever it's been since 21, 22, him turning himself into a good defender, I value on base a ton. That's probably my bias there. But the recency and my value, like me valuing on base. Soriano, it was close. I almost picked Soriano. His power, I mean, his speed was sapped with that hamstring injury that he suffered, or was it a quad injury? I think it was almost immediately upon signing with the team. That hurt him. I think the contract hurt the perception of Alfonso Soriano. He had to be this perfect player instead of this really good player that he was. I don't want to take anything away from Soriano. He was really enjoyable to cover. I thought when he finally got coaching defensively, he got better. Really strong arm. Fun guy to talk to. One of the first guys that I learned to like, oh, you can have fun with these guys. And
of course, Poppy.
Yeah. He was a good guy. I mean, he is a good guy. And I probably now that I'm starting to talk about it, I probably made a recency bias choice, but it was close.
Yeah, I would have gone Story over Hap, just because I feel Soriano, again with Aramis, like sort of encapsulates an era or bridges different periods of the franchise. This like win one for Tribune Tower, big contract. Lots of kind of rumors about how did it, kind of come together at the end, and where were the final offers, and business and baseball all kind of getting their hands in on this deal. Just a big part of those 07, 08 teams, getting the team towards the Theo era. I think the takeaway, and it's not really unique, anyone who encountered Soriano, just like the joy he had at the field every day, his energy, just like legendary character too in the clubhouse of, I think the story was a Cubs reliever asked for change because they were tipping the clubhouse guys at the end of the series. And can you break 100 for me? And he looks at him, he's like, hundreds are change, babe. Like, I think that's, kind of print the legend, but I think that's largely a true story. I think I got that confirmed at some point. Whereas like
so good.
Hap certainly, like kind of the modern player, just if you're looking at the WAR, I mean, Soriano, I think something like 8 WAR over 7 seasons, but he had an 800 OPS and hit, 100, almost close to 200 homers for the Cubs. That's probably inflated. What was it here? 181 homers.
Oh, wow.
812 OPS over 7, not quite 7 full years because he got traded, obviously, but that was only 8.2 WAR. I don't know. It just seems like, to your point with coaching, if he got a little more of that earlier, if his legs stayed a little bit more healthy, I think there's ways to juice the WAR too.
Sure.
But to me, Hap is another one of those guys sort of bridging towards the next era. Like his best years were when the Cubs were kind of down or middling, whereas Sori, I just think had a little more impact. But again, at the end of this year, Ian Happ could have a monster second half, big postseason, and all of a sudden, I said someone who really enjoys talking to Ian Happ. I think his consistency, I don't get why people, he seems to get a lot of heat in our comments section or on social media. A really solid, well-rounded player who like fits perfectly on the 2025 team, and also really like values the Wrigley experience, the history, the city, all that stuff. Like I get why you picked him.
All right. This is crazy. I know it's crazy. I don't care. I think it's the right call. I think it's the right call. I put PCA in center field. And I want you to, this what I'm about to tell you is crazy. He's 4th for center fielders in WAR, according to Fangraphs, from 2000 to 2025. I wrote a piece at some point, I don't know when it was, about remember how there was this talk about the Cubs don't have a third baseman. The Cubs don't have a third baseman before Aramis showed up.
Yeah.
It's been since Ron Santo. That conversation should have shifted to the Cubs don't have a center fielder. The Cubs don't have a center fielder. They have not had a center fielder in a really long time. And that's shown by this WAR that I'm looking at, where he's fourth. It's 5.6 from 2000. Dexter Fowler's at 7.2. Would anybody be surprised if PCA's number one on that list by the end of this season? I don't think anybody would be that surprised if he's number one. The way he's performing right now, he's going to blow by Dexter Fowler. I understand it's ridiculous. I understand I'm supposed to stick to 2025. I get it. It just feels like it's the right call. I just kind of went with, my gut here, and like a little bit of maybe, I don't know if it's fan service. I don't know what it is, but I had to go with PCA. Dexter deserves a ton of love. A great moment, as far as multiple great moments. The return in spring training, the surprise return in spring training, and the leadoff homer in Game 7. And he's Hugo We Go. He deserves credit. Corey Patterson was a great defender. If not a stud offensively, to kind of live up to his prospect type. Cody Bellinger was really good for his couple seasons here. Dexter was the one that I picked him over, and maybe I screwed Dexter over here, but PCA is a stud, man, and I just had to go with the hot hand.
Was this the all late April, most of May 2025 team?
Yes, it may have been.
And I say that someone as a staff, we're just like, all right, we have to write PCA pretty much every day. Like, he's on Javi alert, where you never know what he's going to do. Like, you have to be ready to turn around a headline real fast. I would have gone Dexter for what you described. I mean, Game 7, his return. We just mentioned it, I think, the other day, just kind of talking to Jed, of like, it's an all-time, like, how did they sneak that one through? Did not leak at all. Dexter showing up in Mesa, a genuine surprise. Also, I think just in covering the 2015 season and hearing fans talk about it in retrospect, it was just such a fun, out of nowhere season. And as the Hugo We Go guy, Dexter was right in the middle of that. So just because 2015 was like so unexpected, and I think it's like kind of 1A next to 2016 in terms of like just the entertainment factor and the kind of what was Theo used some sort of metaphor of like a band before they hit it big, of just like kind of a time of air quotes here, innocence, in 2015, even before the expectations just and the weight of 1908 hit them. It was just this like every day a different player. And, that's why I lean Dexter, but like, I understand your PCA choice, since we're always looking for PCA headlines. Like, maybe that'll be the graphic for this Cubs all quarter century team. Just Pete Crow Armstrong with like the
2
blue
months
hair.
of PCA. Well, as ridiculous as that pick may have been, I think this one was easy, unless you're gonna quibble with steroids or whatever. Right field, Sammy Sosa. The numbers speak for themselves. I believe you said 181 career homers for Soriano. I think that's around Sammy Sosa's lead as far as right fielders, and he didn't play that much in this century, and that's how much he dominated with his power. And just his general value. It's him easily over Seiya. We'll see. Is Kyle Tucker the pick in 2050? We'll see. Can they bring Kyle Tucker back?
I did like the 2050 reference there. I was curious too of this borderline here of, obviously we all know Sammy in 98, and then it's like, okay, and then it did not end well with the Cubs at all, and I was kind of curious. And even in 04, he played in 126 games, had 35 homers 80 RBIs, and then just absurd in 2000. 50 homers, 138 RBIs, which is a downgrade from the year prior. 2064 homers, 160 RBIs. 40 and 100, 40 plus, 100 plus in 02, 40 and 103, 2003. Just some absurd numbers. And also, I think he deserves a spot on the team just for the endless questions at Cubs convention to the Ricketts family of whether or not he would come back. That was just his Cold War, I think, was a part of, telling the story of this past quarter century of baseball, really. So that actually that's probably even easier than the first base one. And that was pretty easy in picking Rizzo over D. Lee.
The rotation. So there were some easy ones here. Jake Arrieta, John Lester, Kyle Hendricks are easy picks. Jake Arrieta, one of the greatest stretches, arguably in MLB starting pitching history.
Mm-hmm.
That was just an amazing stretch. We talk about PCA and content with that, like the amount we could write about with Jake Arrieta during that stretch was fun. John Lester changed the culture. Desperately needed a starting pitcher. A big free agent, just an easy pick. Kyle Hendricks, one of the more underrated guys I've covered, one of the nicer, greater guys we've covered. And that there's some numbers I throw in there, but his stretch from 14 to 20, he had the 7th lowest ERA during that span for pitchers with at least 800-ish innings. He had well over 1,000, and the people better than him are Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, Zach Greinke, Chris Sale, Corey Kluber. We're talking about the best of the best during that era, and then Kyle Hendricks sneaks in there. He was just super under the radar, really good. And then I went with Carlos Zambrano. He's the innings leader over this time, WAR leader over this time, top 5-ish, I want to say, in ERA during this time. I think like Wilson Contreras, like Sammy, like some of these other guys, that things didn't always go well, especially as far as with the media or
management.
With management,
teammates.
Yes, he was a mercurial guy, and certainly it didn't always look good, but he was a great pitcher. And then I went Pryor over Wood and Dempster. That's probably controversial, and it probably is part of my bias. I lived in the city and was a fan going to games back in 02 to 05. I went to a ton of games, and he was just his peak in 03 was just really fun. 03, 04 was really fun to watch. I went with peak over Dempster and Wood, who obviously really great Cubs and deserved a mention. I just went with Pryor because he was elite for a couple years there, and this was a 5th spot that I felt like I could take some liberties with.
Yeah, Big Z to me is as automatic as those 3 pitchers from the 2016 rotation, just because the numbers are staggering. His talent was just phenomenal. The entertainment factor off the charts. Sometimes misunderstood, but I think it has to be made clear that he is a really intelligent guy. He just lost his temper in the moments, but a terrific sense of humor. You could see his relationship with our buddy Paul Sullivan at the Chicago Tribune over the years. Super, it could be just super engaging, just physically, just a beast. Looked like he could play in the NBA or NFL, just like a giant, an amazing hitter too. You wouldn't need
forgot about that.
DH, and that 5th spot kind of question mark. I think with Wood and Dempster, obviously great contributions throughout this time. I probably would have done a Craig Counsell default. Well, I need out getters, and you could probably fold Wood or Dempster into the bullpen. I guess they both technically, they closed and put up some nice seasons out of the pen too.
Yeah, I went bullpen closer. I went Carlos Marmol. Just what a wild career he had. Also a kind of a crazy ending as well. For me, what I remember is I was really getting into numbers and strikeout rate and like how important that was. And we were entering an era where pitchers were hitting 30% strikeout rate was almost unheard of. There were very few guys that were capable of doing that. And Marmol was elite at doing that. And then he got to 40%. And that was pretty cool for me to like someone that was really getting into numbers and thought that was cool. Look, he's like any other reliever, really up and down. And but that peak was really fun. He had a ton of I think he's a saves leader during this time. The Cubs haven't had a lot of great closers, to be like completely honest. They just haven't. Nobody that stuck around for a long time. So I went with him. And I had to include a setup guy because I feel like having this list and not having Pedro Strop on it is ridiculous because
great call.
It's so hard to find consistency with relievers. And I think it's just, I mean, he was so consistent. He showed up year after year, a guy that I believe when they acquired him, 7-ish ERA, just looked like a mess. What a trade. Part of the greatest trade, arguably the greatest trade the Cubs have pulled off. I believe it was Steve Clevenger and Scott Feldman for Pedro Strop and Jake Arrieta. Like I had to include him. And one mention that I made was Sean Marshall. I just wanted to mention him because it's so hard to develop lefties. The Cubs finally have a couple lefties in their bullpen right now, but it's been so hard to find lefties. They developed one, and he was really good. He was really good. It traded for a fun piece of the World Series team. Travis Wood was the return, was part of the return for him. But I always liked Sean Marshall. It covered the end of his time with the Cubs and just really good lefty, a good quality reliever, probably a little underrated.
Yeah, I love the calls on Marshall and Strop. I mean, Sean Marshall is a true gentleman, also kind of a calm voice of reason when all this crazy stuff was happening around the Cubs during that time. He just has very mellow vibes. Pedro Strop, all energy team, just great demeanor. Really all players throughout the clubhouse. It wasn't just like the Latin guys. It wasn't just the bullpen guys, like, hitters, pitchers, guys from the country. Everyone just loved Pedro Strop. I just really, posted year after year. Marmol's peak was amazing. I just couldn't go there because he ruined too many like stories. I just felt like he was the classic. He was always around in those day games at Wrigley, and you need like an early notebook. It's like, oh, Carlos Marmol's a name. He's there. He's pitching well. And then it just seems like inevitably you get to the ninth inning in that story you wrote. It's like, oh man, like I have to rewrite everything. I don't think there was like an obvious answer the way there was at certain other positions.
Yeah.
It's just kind of weird. They cycled through like, I don't know, like Wade Davis might have had the best pure closing season.
Yeah. Good
but
call.
It wasn't, that was only, one of, 25 and a quarter century. Brandon Morrow was awesome. He was the opposite of Marmol. Like he was lights out. It just obviously didn't last.
It was a hell of a half season.
And yeah, I mean, he got injured, like putting his pants on, right? That was a good Cubby occurrence. I don't know. Does Mike Montgomery getting that one out, does that put him as the closer? Obviously, Aroldis Chapman, helped drag them to that game 7, but it was such a short kind of span. And then, like Dempster and Wood had nice moments out of the pen too. I mean, you're not going to put Craig Kimbrell on there. I don't know. Do you want to put Daniel Palencia on there? He had a good series against the Rockies. Your recency bias?
Maybe we'll see. We'll see the next list. Maybe Palencia gets up there. I think this just goes to show how tough it is with relievers. Too.
Yes,
and it just really shows the value of Strop. He was so good, and I like the consistency was amazing. Patrick, this list was fun. And talking through it, like I feel like should I have put Soriano on there? And I appreciate your perspective on third base. It's good to like talk this through. So now I'm prepared for the comments that are going to come, because people are going to be mad and yell at me for the terrible decisions I made. But we'll let them sound off on the YouTube comments here as well and yell at us there. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. This is Northside Territory. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. We will be back next week with 3 more episodes. They start a road trip. It is Washington, then it gets tough again. Detroit, and then Philly, right? Detroit and Philly. So it's going to get tough again, and we'll see where this team is and how they handle that. All right. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Take care.